Today is Thursday, March 3rd. What to know about Russian forces advancing in Ukraine. They've taken their first major city. And how and why the U.S. is going after some of Russia's richest business leaders. Also, a new plan to get free treatment as soon as you test positive for COVID-19. Plus, why one of the world's most valuable companies is closing down some of its stores, which Fitbit smartwatches are being recalled, and get ready for the busiest spring break travel season we've seen in years. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Ukraine is now entering its second week at war with Russia, and Russian forces are stepping up their attacks. Yesterday, they captured their first major Ukrainian city, the southern port of Kherson. As the New York Times reports, that could clear the way for Russia to seize Ukraine's entire Black Sea coast. And if that happens, Ukraine would be cut off from international shipping. Other residential areas are also still being targeted all around the country. Russian artillery and rocket fire have left many Ukrainian communities without essentials like electricity, medicine, water, and heat. And a growing number of homes, businesses, and vehicles are now reduced to rubble. Ukraine says more than 2,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed, although the United Nations says the death toll isn't nearly that high. The UN also says that at least 1 million other Ukrainians have fled the country in the last week. That's said to be the fastest that many people have left a country this century. Thousands of people who stayed behind are sheltering in basements and tunnels. So, once again, other nations around the world are calling for peace. The UN General Assembly passed a resolution condemning Russia's invasion. 141 countries voted for this, reflecting how Russia seems to be getting more and more isolated. But there were 5 votes against it from the delegations of Russia, Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, and Syria. And there were 34 other countries who chose not to enter an opinion either way, like China, Iraq, and India. Separately, the International Criminal Court opened an investigation into possible war crimes. The U.S. is taking an extra step to make sure people with political influence over Russia face consequences for the invasion in Ukraine. The Justice Department launched a new task force to target Russian oligarchs, aka the rich business leaders who have helped finance the war. Its assignment is to hunt down and seize their luxury real estate, private jets, yachts, and other assets that are now stashed around the world. Task Force Klepto Capture will be made up of law enforcement officers from the FBI, Marshals Service, IRS, Homeland Security, Secret Service, and more. Already, since the U.S. and other Western nations have stepped up sanctions, several oligarchs have started speaking out against the war. One even wrote an op-ed pleading with Russia's president to, quote, save the world from annihilation. To be continued. For the first time, lawmakers investigating the Capitol riot say they have evidence showing former President Trump and his allies broke several federal laws. In a court filing, the House committee said Trump and his associates engaged in a so-called criminal conspiracy to keep Congress from certifying Biden's victory. Specifically, it says they spread wrong information about the outcome of the presidential election and then tried to strong-arm then Vice President Mike Pence to delay the proceedings so there would be more time to manipulate the election results. So far, former President Trump has not said anything about this court filing, and it's not clear what's going to happen next. But keep in mind, lawmakers don't have the power to bring criminal charges on their own. They can only make a referral to the Justice Department, which is already conducting its own investigation. The panel is also made up of just Democrats and 2 Republicans who've been critical of Trump since the Senate voted against a more bipartisan commission. The U.S. is entering a new phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, one that has more Americans going back to normal life, even though the virus is still circulating. And with that, the White House unveiled a new COVID-19 preparedness plan. One highlight is a new test-to-treat strategy. It'll give free antiviral pills at pharmacies to people who test positive for COVID-19. The White House says that will dramatically lower the risk of people getting severely sick. But there's some concern from pharmacists who say they're already understaffed and busy doling out vaccines, COVID-19 tests, prescriptions, and health advice, so they worry this will stretch them even thinner. Other parts of the plan call for boosting American manufacturing of vaccines and speeding up research into a single vaccine that protects against all COVID-19 variants. And it calls for ongoing investments in the supply of free tests and masks, emerging treatments, and more. Congress would still need to sign off on those investments, though. Either way, the White House Coronavirus Task Force says COVID-19 should no longer dictate how we live because of the progress that's been made. In recent weeks, new COVID-19 cases have dropped to their lowest level since last summer. A coalition of state attorneys general is investigating TikTok. The bipartisan group of AGs wants to know whether the popular video app TikTok is hurting young people's mental or physical health. And it wants to know whether TikTok knew the app could be harmful. In the past, TikTok has been criticized for driving teenagers into rabbit holes of potentially harmful content, videos about things like depression, drug use, and eating disorders. So this probe will look into the methods TikTok uses to boost engagement, among other things. In response, TikTok says it is open to this investigation. A spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "We look forward to providing information on the many safety and privacy protections we have for teens." By the way, the same group of attorneys general is also investigating Meta's Instagram for similar concerns. So stay tuned. All right, we have more news coming up, but first, let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor. Springtime is the perfect time for kids to make new discoveries, like how caterpillars turn into butterflies. KiwiCo is such a great way to help your kids have the type of hands-on experiences in STEAM topics that will spark curiosity and inspire creativity. From rainbows to rocket ships and everything in between, KiwiCo has a subscription line for kids of all ages, so you know their experts have picked out the perfect items and projects for your child's readiness. We got our first KiwiCo when my son Dax was just an infant, and I remember our pediatrician complimenting us on one of the toys I brought into the office from our KiwiCo crate because it was so well designed for his particular age and development. And now it's fun to see how the KiwiCo crates change alongside him. So step into spring and celebrate the season of discovery with a KiwiCo subscription. Get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with the code newsworthy at kiwico.com. That's 30% off your first month at KIWICO, kiwico.com with the promo code newsworthy. It seems Amazon cannot even compete with Amazon. The online giant is shutting down 68 of its physical stores, including all Amazon Books, pop-up, and 4-star stores across the US and UK, ending some of its real-world retail experiments. Amazon also operates other physical stores like Whole Foods and cashierless convenience stores. But revenue from all brick-and-mortar shops only make up about 3% of the company's total pie, and most of that comes from Whole Foods. Amazon said it would be closing down these 68 stores to focus more on its grocery markets and a new department store concept. And speaking of Amazon, the tech giant is now rolling out its video game streaming service to everyone in the US for the first time. The service is called Luna. It's available on iPhones, Androids, desktops, and Fire TVs, and includes integration with the streaming platform Twitch. Luna consists of gaming channels people can subscribe to, like a retro channel, a kid-friendly channel, and more. Those range from $3 to $18 a month, and there's also a channel that's free to Prime members. The company behind the video game Fortnite just acquired an online music store and community. Yep, Epic Games bought Bandcamp. Epic says the deal is another step toward becoming the best place for creators, whether they make music, games, or art, so they can keep most of their hard-earned money. Bandcamp already says artists get to keep the bulk of their cash their songs bring in. We're talking an average of 82% of every sale. Now Bandcamp will continue to operate as is and will use Epic's resources to expand internationally. It says it'll also expand its efforts for mobile apps, search features, merchandise, and more. It helps Epic too, because as Axios reports, Epic will get more chances to incorporate music into its products. The two companies didn't say how much the deal was worth or when they plan to finalize the agreement. Fitbit is warning its customers to stop wearing a certain model of its smartwatches. The company is recalling 1.7 million of the Fitbit Ionic smartwatches. This because there have been several reports of the batteries overheating and burning people. If you have one, Fitbit says you can return it for a refund and get 40% off a new model. Netflix is facing its own real-life money heist to the tune of more than $500,000. Thieves robbed the production sets of two different shows within days of each other. First, on the set of The Crown in Northern England, thieves took around $200,000 worth of props. Then, just one day later in Paris, the set of the Netflix show Lupin was held up too. Apparently, 20 thieves with covered faces broke onto the set while the crew was filming, threw fireworks, and stole around $300,000 worth of equipment. The hit series is, ironically enough, a heist drama. Netflix says everyone is safe and that both incidents are being investigated, but it's unclear if they're connected. A legendary stage, film, and TV actor is being immortalized on the streets of Broadway. A 110-year-old Broadway landmark called the Court Theater will be renamed the James Earl Jones Theater. The New York Times says it marks just the second Broadway theater ever to be named after a Black artist. Jones has been in 21 Broadway shows and dozens of movies, and he's one of the few actors who is a so-called EGOT, meaning he's won at least one Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. The theater is being renovated right now, but it's supposed to open this summer with a big ceremony to honor Jones. Jones responded to the honor, saying it would have been inconceivable to him when he started his Broadway career at that theater 64 years ago that now his name would be on it. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. I now have 3 pairs of Rothy's shoes, and 2 of them are Rothy's best sellers, the Point and the Flat. And I love them both. They're easy to slip on for pretty much any occasion, and they're stylish, comfortable, and washable. In fact, People magazine named the Point the best flat for their first ever Style Awards last year. Of course, that's not all Rothy's offers. They always have a bunch of different colors, patterns, and styles of shoes to choose from. And no matter what you get, they'll be comfortable right out of the box and still look great years later. Plus, I always have to mention how great Rothy's is for the planet. And we're talking about everything Rothy's makes. This is a company that has repurposed millions of water bottles into their signature thread that then goes into all of their products. It's easy to see why millions of women, including me, wear Rothy's shoes every day. Step up your shoes and accessories this spring and get ready to be asked, are those Rothy's? Plus, get $20 off your first purchase at rothys.com/newsworthy. That's ROTHYS, rothys.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Thing to Know Thursday. Well, it seems spring break is going to be especially busy this year. In fact, industry experts say travel is rebounding to levels not seen since before the pandemic. The vacation rental company Vacasa says nearly 40% of Americans are planning a spring break trip this year, and that's up from 29% last year. And the home rental business Vrbo reported a nearly 50% increase in demand for vacation homes as compared to last spring. Where people are going is different from the last couple of years as well. During the pandemic, a lot of people were looking for more outdoorsy trips, like in national parks. So they knew they'd be able to get fresh air and stay away from too many strangers in hopes of avoiding COVID-19. Well, now it seems city travel is back. Travel website Hopper says the most booked travel destinations in the U.S. are Miami, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles. Travel agents also say bookings are spiking for classic European destinations now that international travel is allowed. Paris and London are the top searched foreign destinations on Scott's Cheap Flights. That might be a site you want to check out this year since airfares, hotel rates, and gas prices are the highest they've been in years. Of course, that's because of the inflation we've been talking about so much and all this increased demand for travel. All right, thank you so much for listening. And if you find this podcast helpful, we so appreciate it when you let your friends, family, and coworkers know about it as well. We'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.